Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is David Novak. So how much can you make as a writer? That was the title of a video posted by Matt Wall. I will put a link to it in the description. It dovetails nicely with some thoughts that I've been having myself. As you know, if you've been following my channel, I've been in the midst of a project where I am reading The History of the Crusades by Stephen Runciman in 3 volumes and The Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, also in 3 volumes, and I am interspersing the volumes. And so the thought that I have had is that if your aim is to make money, and say you have a YouTube channel that you want to monetize and make money from, the answer to how to do that is simply follow the money. And I say that because I've noticed that between my Stephen Runciman videos and my Alexander Solzhenitsyn videos, right off, Solzhenitsyn draws, let's just say, 10 times the viewership. Sometimes it's way more than that. And this is attributable to nothing that I am doing. It is simply the fact of the subject matter and the name that is in the title. And so if you're set upon making money at something, what you need to do is pay attention to where the money is coming from, what is prompting that inflow of money, and then replicate it. In my case, the BookTube channel is not something that I intend to make money from. I am not seeking a high viewership. One is, of course, gratified to note that, some video got X number of views. But as I mentioned once before, in my channel's old iteration, nothing ever drew the type of views that the poem I wrote about the death of Ashley Babbitt did. All of the other videos of me reading poems did not do that well by even 1,000th part, I would say. And so I recognized that what drew those views to the channel was an externality. It is not something that arose from within me. Now, did I want to continue that, then I might take that as a tact and determine to only do poems about hot button topics of the day. That's perfectly acceptable. Many people do that. And so it's exactly the same thing. If I was trying to make a channel that would be trying to build itself into some kind of money-making venue, that would be the course to take. So instead of putting my channel's focus on whatever book I happen to be reading, in this case, divided between Stephen Runciman and Alexander Solzhenitsyn, it would be to focus more tightly on, say, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, or say communism. A lot of people seem heavily interested in the idea of communism, probably from both sides of the political spectrum. It is something that the right-wing media likes to accuse everybody on the left of desiring. That's far from the truth, but then if you happen to be on the left, you may feel, well, I've got to learn more about communism and find out what that is, since I am being accused of it. So that's one thing. Money, this insight occurred to me a long time ago. Money is essentially dead things. And I got that idea initially from an article written by the great Michael Ventura. I think it's reprinted in one of his books, possibly his first, the one titled Letters at 3 a.m., which was the name of his column. And it's titled something about burning Eden. He had an old car and he liked to drive across the country. And he pointed out that the fuel which propelled his vehicle was fossil fuel. The fossils being the remnants of dead creatures, dead matter. And so it was upon death that his vehicle was being driven. And when you look carefully into the things that make money, an awful lot of them have to do with dead things. So I live in Chicago. The fur trade went through here. It was highly up in Canada, the Hudson Bay Company. There was a lot of money being made. That money was being made from dead animals. And similarly, all sorts of production, whether it be factory farming or whether it be other kinds of manufacture, the materials often come from dead animals, dead plants. So money is, in essence, dead things. Okay? Now, if your aim as a writer is to make money, it is entirely feasible to do so. If your aim is something else, if you have some sort of artistic intention, that is separate from the notion of making money. In his video, Matt said something to the effect that the difference between a professional writer and a hobbyist has nothing to do with money. I believe he is right about that. Once again, I have a cat scurrying around, and you never know what the cat is going to do. And there went my train of thought. I think she is thinking of going up to a high place. That would be very nice. Anyhow, Matt said something else, which I thought was very pertinent also. And that was that he sleeps well at night. And that brought to mind a book that I read many, many years ago. A book, in fact, which I did not like. It was by Mark Saltzman, and it was the book that put his name on the map, Iron and Silk. And it was a memoir of time that he spent in China studying martial arts. And there was one anecdote from that book which has stayed in my craw. I don't know if you can hear that little scurrying around. Uh-oh, we might have some litter boxing going on, and I'm fairly close to the litter box. So I don't believe he ever became a super adept at martial arts, but he had an encounter with a martial arts master which made an impression on him. And I would advise you first to go check out that book to really get the anecdote from the horse's mouth, as it were, because I have not read the thing in decades, since whenever that book first appeared. And so I will likely tell it wrong. However, I will tell you what I got from it. As I recall, he asked the master something about how does one know when one has become a success, or when is one a success? And the master told him, to be successful, what is it to be successful? To be successful is to eat well and to sleep well. Okay? So I think by that analogy, it sounds to me like Matt Wall is a success. Sleeping well is very important, and eating well is important also. And of course, if you know the Chinese at all, eating well does not simply mean eating in huge quantities, which is how an American is likely to view that. No, eating well is more nuanced than that. But take those two things as being a success or constituting success. If you can do those two things, then all of the rest is superfluous. As I said, I am fortunate in that I am not dependent upon sales of my books of poetry to feed myself. Now, any one of us is living beneath a suspended sword of Damocles, if you will. Our circumstances may change in an instant, but for the meanwhile, for the last, Matt had said he had not held down a regular job since 2007. I have held down a regular job more recently than that, but I have not for, I am not sure exactly, maybe approaching on 10 years at this point. That's neither here nor there, regardless. But for me, I think that I have been eating well and sleeping well to the degree that that is possible. He joked, when it's not super hot in LA, if he's boiling, then he may not sleep so well. And all of us are subject to contingencies of this sort also. And as the climate in general heats up, you cannot obviate the mark that these factors will have upon your life. So I will leave this thought there. I think that if you are trying to write and you are trying to write something which speaks to something inside yourself and is not trying to service a market need, then you cannot count on having money coming in for it. I think there's a reason, as T.S. Eliot said, that poetry tends to be a young man's game. Now, I am perfectly fine with the designation hobbyist. To me, that has a similar ring to amateur, which is also another lovely word, meaning one who loves the thing that they're doing, which is fine. If anything, the phrase professional has a somewhat tawdry or denigratory air to it. Be that as it may, when it comes to writers or artists making money, if you study history, you will find people all over the map on the spectrum. It's something of a crapshoot, really. So as far as making your way in the world, to cop a phrase from V.S. Naipaul, that's sort of your own battle, your own, excuse me, your own set of problems to deal with, and you have to try to deal with them in a way that you can live with. That is a major point that has come up in Solzhenitsyn, where he talks about a dividing line among those who enter the Gulag, where the first reaction is to say, I am going to survive by any means necessary. And he says that's, to begin with, that's a figure of speech. But then you think about it, and you go one way or the other way. By any means necessary means by somebody else's expense or at somebody else's expense. So you may choose to go that way, which means life, or you may choose to go the other way, which means quite possibly death. So it is exactly in the circumstances of trying to be a so-called creative person, of trying to be a writer or an artist. For me, I have fortunately been able to sidestep many of those issues because the poetry has not been a chosen endeavor. It's a thing wherein I was chosen, and I just followed that. And it's been a matter of sheer chance that I have survived to the extent or the length of time that I have. If you're familiar with history, as I am, you would know, as I do, that many, many, many have not been so fortunate. And that's how it stands. So I will leave it there. Thank you very much for stopping by my channel, and thanks also to Matt Wall for making his perspicacious videos about being a writer and about being an artist in this culture in this society.